Okay, so that you could get things back to us as to your input on this text amendment. Let us consider that, and then we may bring you back a text amendment that does not reflect all of your suggested changes, or you're going to be prepared to then act on whatever we present to you in final form.
Mr. Commissioner, I'm a little confused here, because it seems like what we're going to do, and I'm willing to do, is to go back with the planning staff and go through these points that need clarifying and present them again as the proposed text amendment. And go from there.
If it passed or whatever, then
right,
come to us.
Right. Unless you want to take the step and look at what we propose and give it a yay or nay.
Well, I guess my sense is in drafting of this text amendment, we drafted this text amendment and sent it to you. What you're suggesting is you're going to send a text amendment to us for our review that we are then going to review and send back to you. And if we choose to make changes in it, it is not going to be the text amendment that you produce.
And that's your prerogative. You can do that.
And
I don't have a problem.
I didn't interpret it as being that way. I believe that we tabled it for our benefit, to vote on it, or to rework it, and reword it, however we need to do, then vote on it to do pass to come to you, and then for you guys to make the final decision, not to rework it and send it back. If you didn't pass it and you wanted it rewritten, then it would be back at the rec.
Well, I can't see going through all that process. When you guys are ready with whatever you guys are going to propose, I think we all ought to sit down before anything gets written up to see that we agree. I mean, let's pack, I don't like it, you don't like it, and we start going back and forth. If you guys are ready to present something that you think is ready to go, then we ought to have a joint work session and discuss it. And if it looks like it's ready to go to press, then we'll do it.
Okay. Well, I think then we need to have another planning zoning or.
Again, avoid the issue of antique, value, whatever we're talking about here. So I was arguing against that.
Well, that makes sense to me. I'm just trying to point out or bring out the fact that we need to have this in consideration on, is it going to be obscure in a gray area, or do we need to?
Well, we're trying to get this black and white, again, because our code enforcement officer has to enforce this. And if you guys want to get rid of artistic, I guess that could be a chartreuse color. Something other. To him is artistic, so if you want to get rid of artistic, you're not going to get my things. Agreed?
Mr. Chairman, I was the one I crossed out the word emotional and artistic and left historical, inserted the word economic or other appeal. Parts cars cannot have emotional or artistic appeal. Just by definition, in parts cars, you're cutting them up, trading the parts, selling the parts or whatever. There's no artistic or emotional attachment to them. And there is economic value, period. I see you shaking your head.
I agree with that.
So that's why I took that out.
Okay.
And the other thing is you're trying to define an electric car. And I agree with Mr. McDowell in that, you're defining an electric car, you better keep the antique situations out of it. So I would agree with that.
All right, so we're getting rid of emotional, artistic, and you want to put it
Why would you have a parts car or an electric car if it didn't have economic value?
economic value. Okay. What is it? Did you say something else besides economic value?
Other appeal, how to define other appeal, I think that's too vague.
To what now?
The words other appeal.
Or other appeal? I have no problem getting rid of it.
If there's something that
It makes it simpler for me.
right, let's put in what that means, if there is something that means.
Other appeal is gone? Okay, gone.
They're just chopping the shit out of it.
Rob had to go in and...
Well, the only thing I was thinking when we were talking about this, the ATV review, anybody primarily out there that's going to have these kind of cars, they've got these kind of cars and the ATV. So when they come in for an conditional use permit, as we're going to do down here, I think that would be discussed about whether they've got ATV or in the mix. They're still going to have a conditional use permit.
We're not doing them.
Well,
but that's that's up to them. If they have a bigger area, then screening's gonna be more, and that's up to them, that's totally up to them.
So Rob, Mr. Chairman, so what you're saying is, if they have 18-wheelers or more, or I mean bigger vehicles, bigger trucks, they still possibly can get a conditional use permit.
They can request one.
They'll probably
Doesn't
have
mean
to
they're
have
gonna
a
get one.
conditional use permit anyway.
So,
If we limit it to vehicles of less than a ton and a half, then they could not get a conditional use permit under the collective car for vehicles in excess of a ton.
But they can get a conditional use permit to have them other ones.
what would they call it?
Well, they could apply for a conditional use permit for auto reduction on recycling.
Okay.
Going
And they could
nowhere.
have the bigger trucks then, so, right?
That is correct.
As long as they
In the appropriate zone.
That's what I'm saying,
Yeah.
if we limit this particular text amendment to say 18-wheelers don't qualify, then
they can't do it here, but they can do it within a conditional use.
Okay, well, then they're out here.
Yeah, something else, okay.
All right, Bill, is that all you had? Just
If they respond within 14 days after getting the notice and start the CUP process, and then come before the county commission, what happens if it's denied? Yes, sir. Because I mean, if he had 14 days, and if Dave hit, if he didn't comply, the citation is sent to the DA, right?
He's gonna do the paperwork to get the conditional use permit.
Agreed, but I mean, that car is sitting there through the whole process. I mean, he got notice, and now he decided to go through the CUP process. It goes through planning and then county commission. What happens then if it's denied?
Denied by the county commissioners?
Yes, sir.
Cars.
Yeah. Is he then cited, or how's that work?
I think it would be given a reasonable amount of time to remove the car and bring it into compliance. And if
Is that 14 days again?
I wouldn't think so. I would think this
Just
is more reasonable for, I don't know that we've ever been unreasonable with anyone on it.
No, I'm not saying unreasonable, I'm just asking
I
what the
know,
process
you know, 30, 60 days, 90 days, something like that.
There are some,
I was gonna say that once it's gone through the planning and zoning board, if it passes there and say it doesn't pass at ours, I mean, we've gotta have some reasons that it didn't stand muster.
So
And
then-
there's
so-
some tweaking
So
that
bottom
they
line,
could do to.
I guess
to
bottom
be in
line
compliance.
comes down to our discretion then. You say we've never been unreasonable, okay, fine. But I'm just wondering if there was a 14-day that applied.
I wouldn't think so, because it would be more of 90 days or even 180 days or something like that, some reasonable amount of time for removal.
Our intent is to work that deal with somebody to get them to comply.
Yeah, or go back to the drawing board, maybe they need to go back and work something out and then go back before the planning.
A auto reduction center conditional use permit, which allows all size vehicles. This is just
Or
an
tractors
additional,
or buses.
tractors, buses, this is just an additional conditional use permit.
But Mr. Chairman, it depends on what zoning area.
That's true.
That isn't allowed in a lot of areas.
That's
So
true.
they would have to have a variance.
What you
Then
would want.
apply.
They'd have to have a variance and then ask for a conditional use permit.
To have-
So they'd have to ask for two. Can they do that at the same time, or do you have to have?
Plus your neighbors approve.
And that's no different than the regulations are right now.
They don't have any recourse. But I think most of the time, the people I've dealt with, and like I said, they called me, they wanted me to go to breakfast with them the other morning, and I told them up front, I said, look, you need to know where I'm coming from before you invite me to breakfast, because you may not want me there. And they didn't have any problem with it at all. And I said, these are my ideas on what's going on.
So what do they want? If you would, as a majority of them, what do they want? They don't want any cleanup?
I didn't perceive that, but I didn't sit down and talk with them.
Okay, well, I'm curious, we only get the vocal minority up here, that's all we get. We don't get, Joe Citizen, who has a nice place and wants to keep it up, and if he comes up here and says, well, I got this place and it's decreasing in value because this guy's a slob over here, and he's going to get blasted. Well, he's not going to get up in a meeting and say that.
Right.
So, well, if we don't do our job, it's not gonna get cleaned up.
In my opinion, you guys been forced into a box here, and that's just my opinion. Before, the county commissioners, all this was dealt with before it got to them, and all they had to do was ultimately make a final decision. I attended all those meetings, as most of you know, because I wanted to see what was going on. And it was interesting to me, the people that came. Some of them I know, some of them I don't. But, and it may not work. This may be an entirely new generation, and my concept of public hearings may not work, but I very truthfully believe that you start in areas. Start with Dempsey Acres. You say, okay, kids, we're gonna have a town hall meeting in the Mills building, where they're
Senior center.
Yeah.
We don't wanna go into.
Well, but that's just a spot, okay?
Terry and I did,
Yeah,
with
we
the
was
Dempsey
out there.
Acres group a couple months ago, and the hatred between some of those neighbors,
Oh, I know.
you call them neighbors, was palpable.
Yeah, I know.
See,
I've been there before.
Mr. Chair, some of the hatred starts with, I mean, unfortunately, I like them both, but Dick Sadler and Whitlock, because Whitlock built this fancy house in a trashy area. I hate to call it trashy, maybe that's not the words to use, but not in a good-looking area. And he built this several $100,000 house, and now the neighbors say, hey, he knew what it was like before he moved out there. And now he's trying to do so. It's like moving out by the airport and wanting the airport to move because you built a house out there. You know.
But people do.
I know it.
And to be honest with you, if you looked at the zoning regs and said, guess what? This stuff that's going on here is not approved by the county and needs to be cleaned up.
You guys aren't doing your job.
But don't
You guys, and that's what he basically did, said, hey, I got a nice resident out here and you're enforcing your regulations.
I certainly agree there needs to be areas out there cleaned up, but I will say on behalf of the old-time county commissioners, twice I was out there on one Saturday, 2 Saturdays, different times, different years. We had a major cleanup drive, and we had tractors out there, the road and bridge was out there and all that. So the county commissioners were involved twice in having area cleanups out there.
We had a dumpster out there too.
Yeah, so that's 3 times.
But then you have to go enforce the laws, other than just go offer them free.
No, I understand that.
You gotta enforce the laws and
I understand that, but I mean, we have been involved over the years.
If you're gonna write them, you gotta back them.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Well, a lot of them were written back in '72, and the people that bought in there, some of them, there was a guy that, up on Wolf Creek the other night, and I'll bet he may have been there before '72. I mean, that's a true grandfather.
Yeah. One of the big time problems is nothing was done. And they've settled in, and the grass has grown, and everybody's content, and now we're beginning to go this way.
Yeah.
And that's
Can I speak to that? I mean, and it's just been my experience is that we haven't, you're right, Harold, we haven't addressed a lot of those issues, but we've asked planning, and they say, they could certainly always use more staff, but they have hundreds of complaints on their desk, and so I guess they just tend to get to the worst of the worst, or if a commissioner happens to get a phone call, we'll call Gene or Bill or something like that, then I guess that complaint tends to find its way to the top of the pile or something like that, And so you're right in saying, I think that a lot of them haven't been addressed, but I think that's some of the reason why.
Well, and I think that's part of planning's obligation, is to address them. I don't see you guys as having to do that, except I'm going to push comes to shove.
Planning doesn't help either.
I can't help but believe that planning and development and code enforcement are looking for this board to go bad. They're looking here saying, hey, I have the opportunity to be torn back and forth, back and forth, back and forth as this gets resolved. Would you guys please resolve this and we'll go do our job. And I think that's our obligation, is to come to some resolution on the card issue, get that done. They're continuing to work on the junk issues
the tire issues and, you know, the abuses that are out there. And I don't know that we really know all the stacks of citations and everything that's out there. You know, here's another thing too, and I'm not putting them down, although there's a lot of jokes going on about attorneys. But I'll tell you what, you've never had the planning is being ran by an attorney, and then Gene Wallace, his assistant, is a retired attorney from county+code, as you well know. When you get two attorneys together, and they're good buddies because they have something in common, you just make a hill out of an anthill. Let me tell you what, Terry, I think that is maybe the most asinine statement I've ever heard. Well, that's good, because I've heard a couple from you too, Bill. But I haven't said anything. I'm going to tell you that I believe that the one thing that being an attorney does, it teaches you critical thinking skills. Well, and I appreciate now they are doing their job. I told you I wasn't putting them down. I just said, and you can ask a lot of people in this town, when you get two attorneys together, they make they take an anthill and they make one of the highest peaks out of it sometimes.
They have a tendency to do that, but they are different.
All right, let's get back. Go ahead, one more comment.
Just one quick comment. I think you're right, though. I think they are looking for us to move forward. And they're not only they're attorneys, but I think they're human, and they're seeing some of the blogging and stuff that's going on that's directed specifically at them, and they're starting to take it personally. So, yeah, I think the sooner we move forward, I think get rid of that.
Yeah.
Now,
Harold,
my last 2 cents.
Why do we even have to have them? I thought the whole thing about cleaning up the county was to clean up the county. Why is it all centered around vehicles?
Because that's
you.
what the law
To
states now. They're all junk cars.
To everybody.
To everybody. That's what the county law says.
No, state law doesn't say that.
Well, it's not state law, it's county law. County law precedes state law.
Madam Chairman, Commission members, I'm Harold White, 5075 Coates Road. I got a couple of questions. I don't really have a dog in this fight, okay, but I got some friends that may have. So I need some clarification, please. I'm real curious about what my friend Kitty said about the nuisance ordinance. Everybody I've talked to doesn't seem to know where that came from. I'd kind of like to know about it. When it was implied, was there public hearings? I don't remember seeing anything in the paper about it. That to me is a little bit too broad a statement. I can classify my neighbors as nuisances and have both feet to stand on. And I moved in knowing what was around me, so I live with it. The other thing is, on this piece of paper right here and all these proposals, I need to know when this goes into effect. Is this retroactive to 1972, or is this when it's ratified?
Yeah, we don't want to go into.
Well, but that's just a spot, okay?
Terry and I did with the Dempsey Acres group a couple months ago, and the hatred between some of those neighbors, you call them neighbors, was palpable.
Yep, I know.
See,
I've been there before.
Mr. Chair, some of the hatred starts with, I mean, unfortunately, I like them both, but Dick Sadler and Whitlock, because Whitlock built this fancy house in a trashy area. I hate to call it trashy. Maybe that's not the words to use, but not in a good-looking area. And he built this several $100,000 house. And now the neighbors say, hey, he knew what it was like before he moved out there. And now he's trying to do so. It's like moving out by the airport and wanting the airport to move because you built a house out there.
Location of Dempsey Acres, presumably we get some resolution, which I think we're going to have, allow for a lot of conditional use permits, many of which may, a number of which may be in your neighborhood, close association, some within 300 feet, the notification area, what have you. How are you going to handle that as a member of the commission?
As in what way? I mean,
Well, you're sitting here and you're maybe a guy that looks over the neighbor's fence. Do you announce a conflict of interest? Do you not communicate? Do you not vote? Do you vote?
Well, that's a good thought. It is a good thought. There's probably only be one property I'm within 300 feet of, maybe two, that would come up. And at such time, I would assume that it would be appropriate for me to say, hey, I am a neighbor here, and I'll give my opinion, but I probably shouldn't vote on something where I'm next door neighbor. Somewhere I should let the other board members vote on.
Okay.
I don't know what your policy is. Do you have a policy on that, I would assume?
We do have a policy on benefit, true benefit, financial benefit. I happen to be kind of a strict constructionist when it comes to conflict of interest. It becomes less of a conflict if you at least acknowledge it.
Right.
And in most cases, if it's enough of a conflict to acknowledge, it's probably enough of a conflict.
I found that real interesting because we've sat and had, he drinks Coke and I drink coffee, we've sat and had meetings, just him and I at the cafe, and what the persona that he gives in the courtroom, pardon me, and what he does when I'm talking to him is two different things.
There's a file in your office about that tape. I've seen it. I'm part of that file. And nothing's been done. The place is still a dump. And I think anybody that looked at it would agree. I would hope that we could get some of these problems corrected, and I could get my problem with Dixie Acres resolved. I went to the commission here a couple of years ago and asked them, what can I do about these violations in my area? And they said, file a complaint.
Three neighbors away. I'm trying to sort out as to what the aggravation is, or what your need is, or the point you're trying to make. Do you have any neighbors next door to you that have electric cars? I mean, adjacent properties.
It's next door to me. It has two motorhomes, a trailer, and a brand new house trailer. It's got two MGB converters. Their driver is sitting out the passenger vessel. He's got about 8 or 9 vehicles on his driveway right now, as I can do. Yes, I can.
Okay. Go ahead.
On the committee, and I appreciated his input. I think what we've got is a pretty good text amendment for adoption. I think it's going to have to be tweaked. Mr. Goodwin mentioned the fact that in SR1s and that possibly there should be some allocation with stickers or something for another car or two for parts cars. And I live in an SR1 area, and I wouldn't be opposed to that. I understand that the sticker idea has been brought up before. I don't recall who brought it up, and I know it's been discussed. And I've been told that this is probably one of the things that the commission may look at later. I would hope that they would. I had a couple things in the last year that kind of bothered me a little bit. So actually, I was thinking about coming up here today and being on the other side and saying, no, let's not do it. Because I've heard so many people at these meetings and in the newspapers and the blogs on the computer, I think that's what you call them, blogs. After every time there's a piece in the paper, there was 3 pages of blogs a couple of days ago after that Sunday article about zoning. But when you hear all that stuff, you think, well, gosh, if these people don't want this, do they really want to go back to where we were a year and a half ago when they passed the nuisance that started this whole thing?
There you go.
Assholes are over there taking pictures of my stuff.
If you own a business and you're on a council or something like that, and you own a business and an issue comes up pertaining the same thing as your business, you got to vote abstain.
You're supposed to.
So, Ron Henry has no goddamn opinion.
Yeah, that's
He
true.
should have no opinion. If we can't go after ranchers and stuff, he should vote abstained. And then guess what? Then you got Matt Keaton that's
He's been on our
sort of
side.
on our side, and the
Terry's
sort of
doing
on our
good.
side. And Winger, I think we could throw him our direction. But Ron Henry's in there,
I'm
and
sure
he
Terry's
shouldn't be able to. He shouldn't be able to influence them people. He shouldn't be able to say a damn thing unless we go after
Say
ranchers.
aye. Those opposed?
Nay.
Okay. Motion's carried.
Here's another thing too, and I'm not putting them down, although there's a lot of jokes going on about attorneys. But I'll tell you what, you've never had the planning is being ran by an attorney, and then Gene Wallace, his assistant, is a retired attorney from Conoco, as you well know. When you get two attorneys together, and they're good buddies because they have something in common, you just make a hill out of them, an anthill.
Let me tell you what, Terry, I think that is maybe the most asinine statement I've ever heard.
Well, that's good, because I've heard a couple from you too, but I haven't said anything.
I'm gonna tell